was a little bit of pressure, Adam, I have to say. Shabbat Shalom. It's so sweet to be here. It's really such a pleasure to daven with you all, to pray with you all tonight. I really, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful to be here and to be part of this service. Heather, where did Heather go? Hi, Heather. Thank you for inviting me. Mazel tov to the bar mitzvah family for tomorrow. It's really, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you all. I want to begin with a true story. Heather's name, this is just from a few days ago. Heather's no longer at Hebrew College. Maybe some of you all noticed that. She's here, but we were talking about her a few days ago. We were talking about her because we are hiring a new faculty member, and I gathered the faculty committee that is hiring our next Talmud professor together. And I said, okay, we need a process to have a student join the committee. What should the process be? And I said that to my assembled committee of other faculty people. Does everybody get the scene? Haven't lost anybody. That's good. And I said, what should the process be? And there was quiet. And I was like, well, okay. So we could nominate some students or have students not. And finally, somebody said, I just don't know. And I said, what do you know? And I said, I just don't know if there can be a student on the committee. And I said, is Hebrew College is kind of our deal. We're kind of in with students there and with us. We kind of got to have somebody in the committee. And they said, with all seriousness, I am not exaggerating, this is the truth. They said, if Heather Renetzky cannot be on the committee, I do not think there can be a student on the committee. Because every single student committee, every time the faculty needed a student on the committee, it was Heather, because she was kind of the only one we trusted. I mean, I love everybody else here, but this is, yeah, no, you're okay. You understand. I want to be clear, there's not like 2 students at Hebrew College and we only trusted Heather and didn't trust the other person. We've got 75 students and we only trust Heather. So I said, well, I could talk to her about it. I'm going to see her in a few days. Maybe she can come back and be on the committee as kind of a student alumni representative. You are so lucky to have her. I, the faculty of Hebrew College, trust her implicitly so much. You are so lucky to have her. She's lucky to have you. Let's not get crazy here. She is lucky to have you. I know Adam and Rachel for, I'm sorry to say, 30 years. Which means Rachel and Adam are old. I'm still quite young, but they're old. Anybody who gets to work with Rachel and Adam is lucky. They are lucky. I don't know this synagogue, but any synagogue that would have Rachel and Adam for this long must be an amazing shul. She is lucky to be here. I'm an American Jewish historian. She's lucky to be here. She's going to preach from this place where Gunther Plaut preached. She's lucky to be here. She, like many of my graduates, are infatuated with Minnesota for God knows what reason. Say it again. Many reasons. Baruch Hashem, many reasons. She is lucky to be here. She is lucky to be here. She's absolutely lucky to be here. She is lucky to be here, but you all have hit the jackpot. I want to say a little bit about Hebrew College, and then we're going to come back to Heather. Good? Because I get the feeling that not everybody knows exactly what Hebrew College is. As the rabbi said, I got this is the first time you've hired somebody not at Hebrew Union College. Somebody in 1923 in Boston said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to start a school of education. You'll get your master's in Jewish education at this school, and we're going to name it exactly like another institution, but we're going to take out the union so we don't confuse anybody somehow. So we're Hebrew College, which is not to be confused with Hebrew Union College, but indeed, once a year, I have a conversation, somebody's looking for a rabbi, and I'm about 20 minutes in when they ask me how things are in Cincinnati. And I say, oh no. Do you think you're talking to the Reform movement? And they say, yes. And it's, no, that's Hebrew Union College, where I went, where Rachel went, where Adam went. Hebrew College is in Boston. We are a 102-year-old institution, but we are a 23-year-old rabbinical school. So we started rabbinical school in 2001. It was founded on 4 principles, which I just want to touch on, just to give you a sense of what Hebrew College is. 1, it's a program where we ask students to learn traditional texts, but in a post-critical way. What I mean by that is they learn contemporary scholarship, how the texts were created, the background for the texts, how to think about them critically, how to bring different reading lenses, how to bring a feminist lens or a queer lens or a literary lens. But we also ask them to just learn the text deeply on their own. So our program is every day for 5 years, 6 years. I know, before you say it, Heather. Heather spent 6 years. Why? Because we wanted to torture her in particular. Every day for 6 years, you learn Gemara, you learn Talmud, and Jewish law. We know that not everybody is running to their rabbi to ask questions of Talmud. That's not the point. We force our students to immerse themselves and become at home in the sea of Jewish literature, because we want them to feel like authentic spiritual leaders who are at home in that tradition, because we believe those people who are at home in tradition are ultimately the people who are most able to make change in the Jewish world, which is needed. We believe rabbis should be seekers themselves. So we take questions of spirituality and prayer very seriously, and our program has attracted a rich collection of artists and musically talented people who pray with real spirit. So we're trying to marry traditional Jewish learning with a kind of contemporary spiritual sensibility. We do 2 other things. We're pluralistic. That is, we're not creating Reform or conservative or Orthodox rabbis. Not that there's anything wrong with that. See, Rabbi Chaz and me, all good to create a denominational rabbi. But we believe at this moment we are just creating rabbis for the Jewish world. And the world needs rabbis. They need people who can build bridges, who can sort of think together across a wide swath of the Jewish community. We do all of that within a very relational sensibility. Faculty are committed to relationship with students. We see our students, we're honest with them about our religious struggles. They're honest with us, we hope, about their religious struggles. We've been successful, and our goal is to create students ultimately who are wise about tradition, honest about their spiritual lives, who bring a spark of humanity and joy to their work. Our goal was to create rabbis like your new Rabbi Heather. So now I want to speak a little bit about Heather, in case you didn't get a full chance to know her so well. And if you do know her, this will be repetitive, or self-obvious, or some other word. Something happens to some rabbis who've been rabbis for a little while. It has not happened to your rabbi, as anybody knows. But some rabbis, their head begins to get bigger as the longer they're in the rabbinate, and they're kind of, you can't fit their ego through the door after a little while. Rabbi Renetzky is not going to have that problem. She brings a deep and appreciated humility to who she is. She takes her work seriously. She takes herself seriously, but somehow is poised exactly to not take herself too seriously. Rabbi Renetzky has a sense of humor. I feel like we don't talk enough about the need for a sense of humor. I feel like there's one religious need we all have in this world. It is at this moment to be able to laugh at each other and ourselves. I consider it the highest level of religious being to have a sense of humor. And Rabbi Renetzky has a sense of humor. She is, I want to say, though, not one of those people, I want to say she positively, as those of you know her know, she kind of thrums with a sense of cheerfulness and upbeatness. But she's also not Pollyanna-ish and saccharine, one of those people who would smile even if their house is burning down and say everything is okay. She's not one of those people. She's somebody who is joyful and cheerful without being saccharine and Pollyanna-ish, which is its own little trick. How are we doing? We're good? We're good? I'm in the middle of praising Heather. If you've been zoning out, zone back in. I'm praising Heather. Good? Heather, can you take this for a little while longer? It's not gonna be that much longer. A little while. I'm just checking in.
And her parents are loving it, so keep going.
Say it again.
Her parents are loving it.
Her parents sent me, no, please go on for 3 more hours. But I said, no, this must come to an end soon. Heather has a sense of complexity and nuance. I'm teaching a class right now at Hebrew College. A board member came to me and the president of Hebrew College and said, I think we should have a class for parents who are not speaking to their children because of Israel. The parents are Zionists, just in case you missed that. The parents are Zionists, the children are anti-Zionist. And somebody said, oh, are we going to be able to fill that class? We filled the class not once, but twice. It has sold out twice. I'm in the middle of teaching the first section, and it is fascinating. I'm happy to talk to anybody about sort of the class and what I'm seeing. It's really interesting, but here's one of the most interesting things for me. The adults in the class, it's just for the parents, just for the parents. We don't have anybody who's in the younger generation. The adults say that when they come to thinking about Israel, they bring a lot of nuance and complexity. They say, though, when they talk to their children and they tell their children about nuance and complexity and history, the children say, no, there's no nuance here. There's no complexity. Don't talk to me about history. The only thing that matters is that Israel's doing something wrong right now. I don't want to hear anything about complexity or nuance. I'm not sure what happened with our capacity to hold complexity and nuance in history. But a world without complexity, nuance, and history is not a world that I care to be in. Your rabbi holds complexity and nuance and history extremely well. She is, and this is a thing that I think so much of, she is an exquisite holder of contradictions. She's smart, she's thoughtful, we want her back, you are lucky, you got that. Last thing I want to say about Heather. Heather has a radical sense of curiosity. If you can't make it to my talk on Sunday morning at 10 a.m., where I'm talking about a really fascinating moment of American Zionist history, when America became Zionist in 1922, you can make it to my talk tomorrow at 6 o'clock at Rabbi Glick's shul, Shir Tikva, where one of the things we're going to be talking about is the kosher women's meat boycott riots of 1902. I know you're all saying, oh, it's enough with that. I hear about that all the time. If I have to talk about the kosher women's meat boycott riots one more time, I'm going to be sick. But in case you haven't talked about it in the past week or two, I explained when I taught my Jewish history class last year about the kosher women's meat boycott riots of 1902. Most people said, okay, that's interesting. Heather said, whoa. She said, tell me more. A woman after my own heart, tell me more. So I gave her a whole book on the kosher women's meat boycott riots. In case any of you have any questions, you actually don't need to come tomorrow night, I forgot. Just ask Heather, she read the entire book. She quite rightly saw the model of what change looks like through these women who in 1902 were on the streets of New York City because kosher meat prices had gotten jacked up, and so they boycotted, and the boycott often turned violent. That is, they were the ones committing the violence, and they were the ones being thrown in jail, and they were the ones who were protesting, running into synagogues, demanding to be heard. And prices ultimately went down through their street actions. Here's what Heather titled her paper. She titled it, Moms Will Lead the Revolution. Here's what she said in her footnote to the title. Successful revolutions and social justice fights will be won not by a bunch of, I'm going to get the word out. It's an easy word. I'm stumbling. Give me 1 second. Not by a bunch of indignant young adults, but by moms who are fighting for the rights of their children. Should I say that again? Yeah, say it one more time. You want to force me to say that word I can't say again? Thank you very much. Successful revolutions and social justice fights will not be won by a bunch of indignant young adults, but by moms who are fighting for the rights of their children. Here's the thing. The paper was full of insights and questions, and it was commitment to justice. It was a mix of clarity and intelligence and appreciation and humility and all the things I've been saying. But at its heart, what Heather has is a passionate curiosity. And that passionate curiosity is what she brings to each and every one of you when she says, tell me more. That passionate curiosity is what she's going to bring to each and every one of you when she says, how are you doing? That passionate curiosity is what she's going to bring to all of this community when she says, well, how can we change? How can we do what we need to be? How can we do what we need to do to be better? You are so lucky. Okay, ready? I want to say 2 more things and then I'm done. I tell this story at every installation. I'm sorry. You were getting a retread story. Rabbi, it's from our teacher, Maggie Wenig. So if you've told this story before, I apologize again. She was the professor of homiletics when Adam and I were in school. Homiletics is how to give a sermon. Because she was the professor of homiletics, on Sunday morning, she told us she would sometimes go hear preachers preach in our neighborhood. She lived in the upper west side of New York. So she'd sometimes go to churches to hear people that she really liked preaching. And there was one particular preacher she said she used to go to on Sunday mornings. There was a particular style of their preaching common in AME churches and African-American churches, where the preacher would start out by talking about what they had for breakfast and what they did on their walk to church, and they would slowly build, and before you knew it, they were thundering from the mountain. And she said one Sunday morning she was there, and the preacher was talking about what they had for breakfast, and then they were talking about what they did on their walk to church, and they were trying to build, and they couldn't. And they were sort of meandering around, and they weren't building, and everybody was getting a little worried. And she heard behind her 2 women say, "Help them, Lord." Here is what I want to say, what I get out of that story. These women understood that they needed their preacher to preach really well for them to be spiritually moved. We, the Jewish people, collectively, not here, maybe in every other synagogue in America, sometimes when the rabbi is maybe not getting exactly the way you want it to be, or not doing exactly the way it should be in your mind, or some Jews, not any of you here, but some Jews tend to be critical sometimes of their rabbi, not you. If Rabbi Renetzky is not doing it exactly the way you wanted to do it, or it's not exactly right, or she's struggling, I want you to pray for her. actually mean that. I want you to pray. It's so un-Jewish. Pray for your rabbi. I want you to pray for her, because if she can be who she needs to be, then you all can be lifted to the spiritual level that you should be lifted to. You need her to be who she can be so you can be what you can be spiritually. I want you to pray for her. One word of Torah, and then we're done. This Torah portion, there's one verse which I love in this Torah portion. Everybody still with me? Last thing I'm going to say. There's one word of Torah in this, there's one verse, that I love in this week's Torah portion. The verse is from the story is Eliezer, the servant, is given a mission by Avram, go find a wife. He goes, he's at a well, he sees Rebecca, he's thinking, she's the one, my mission, I think this is going to be good. I'm going to find a wife for Abraham's child. He's been given this mission, find a wife by Abraham for his child Isaac. He sees her at the well and thinks, this is it. Here's the verse. The verse is, V'ha'ish mishtayeh la machrish ladat hatzliach Adonai darko im lo. I'll translate. The man, Eliezer, stood gazing at her silently, wondering whether Adonai had made his errand successful or not. The man stood gazing at her, silently wondering whether Adonai had made his errand successful or not. This is a radically unusual verse in the Tanakh. It's incredibly unusual. Why? Because it's a little bit of interiority. The man stood gazing, wondering. The Bible never says things like this. The Bible says he went, he did, he knew. It never talks about the interior. He thought. Bible almost never says he thought X, Y, or Z. But here's this verse out of nowhere that says Eliezer stands wondering. That word wondering is in fact used just a few times in the entire Tanakh. Wondering whether his errand will be successful. Knowing probably that it would be. He's amazed when he sees her, and he wonders, will this errand be successful? Mishta'eha, to stand wondrously in amazement, to wonder if you're going to be successful. I want to say, as my last words here, I am standing wondrously, thinking, will my errand of training Heather to be your servant, will that be successful? And I will say, I know it will be. Baruch Hashem, thank God, you are so lucky. She is lucky to be here, and you are lucky to have her. Shabbat Shalom.
Wow. It's like my own personalized stand-up. Thank you so much. I am so grateful to be here and to be celebrated and to celebrate with all of you. And I want to give one small special shout out to Allison Mellon, too, to helping me celebrate and bring people together who came from far and wide over dinner earlier. I am especially grateful to Dan, to Rabbi Dr. Dan Judson, and to my parents who were willing to come to Minnesota right when it was getting cold. And to all of my people who are here. Thank you for keeping your ears and eyes open to help me come home, and for welcoming me once I finally arrived. And to all of my people watching from afar, including my siblings and my grandparents and lots of dear people who lovingly supported me in leaving LA and Boston despite their desires for me to be closer. But they knew what my heart wanted, and they supported me in getting what my heart wanted. And they supported me in discerning that this place, that Mount Zion, was very much where my heart was. In our Torah portion this week, as you heard Dan reference, Eliezer, Abraham's servant, sets out to identify this perfect match for Isaac. And he finds that match when Rebekah offers him and his camels water. And that match is founded on these shared values of warm welcome and open-heartedness and trust. That's what makes him feel like it's right. And for me, that's what makes me feel like this is right, is that warm welcome and that open-heartedness and that trust. I haven't been here for too long, but I've already been so struck by this community's authenticity and commitment to growth and open, welcoming spirit. I can tell that you all really want to be here, and you're here with your whole hearts, and it really shows. I've seen it in people's willingness to get elbow deep in challah dough, or soap suds, or craft supplies, or flowers, or drafts of strategic plans and programs, or expedited drafts of strategic plans and programs. And I've seen it in the ways that this community says yes. That you all say yes to dedicating Sundays to your kids' religious education, to being a greeter even when the wind is blustery or the sun is hot, to saying hi to someone new at Oneg, to leading groups in everything from bicycling to climate justice, to learning Torah, to praying together, to selling bagels and sorting garage sale items. I feel so lucky to be here. I feel so lucky as a motif, and I didn't know what Dan wrote, so I'm glad we were in cahoots. But I feel so lucky to be supervised and mentored by Rabbi Spilker, who brings equal parts menschiness and sarcasm to our meetings in the best way possible. And I feel so lucky to get to work alongside and be mentored by Rabbi Adler and Cantor Strauss-Klein and Cantor Spilker, who have been very honest and very real with me from our very first meal together and our very first coffee together. And I feel indebted to Kate, Abby, Alicia, Gabby, E, Teresa, Therese, Janelle, Elias, Maria, Karen, Ron, and Ezio for keeping this place afloat and for keeping this place thriving with equal parts vision and follow through and dedication and thoroughness and, of course, sweet treats. And I feel unbelievably blessed to be led by an incredible board and board president, Amy, who have believed in me from the beginning, and to get to lead and journey with such a down-to-earth and come-as-you-are community. I want to bring us back to our Torah portion for just a second here. Although it is Eliezer who identifies Rebekah as a match for Isaac, she actually gets to choose if she's going to go and marry him. This is a rare moment. She actually gets asked a question, do you want to do this? She's asked, will you go with this man? And she responds, I will go. The 17th century commentator Ha'emek Davar expounds on this verse. And he says this, kind of giving us a sense of what's going on in her head. She said she would go even though she was afraid of riding camels because she didn't want to delay while they arranged for alternative transportation. Now, I really love this idea for a couple reasons. And the first is that I love the idea that it was actually fear of camels that might have kept her from saying yes, and not any sense of not knowing what was going to happen, not knowing the guy she was going to marry, not knowing where she was going. It was the camels. It was clearly the camels. But more importantly, I think what I love and appreciate about this is that it shows that Rebekah is saying yes, even in the face of fear. And the reality of this moment is that we're in a place of heightened uncertainty in our world. We're in a phase of change and on the precipice of change. And I'm not fearing camels right now, but I do hold a lot of fear. But my hope for me and for us as a community is that we can be like Rebecca, that we can keep saying yes to each other in spite of the fears that we might carry, that we can trust and commit to each other, and that we can go forward together. So may we go forward however we do, camels, no camels, to build a brighter community, to work toward that 2040 strategic plan, and to get to know each other. So I hope we start today. Come find me at the Oneg, and if you can't find me today, send me an email. I want to meet with each and every one of you. I really do. So I look forward to it all. Thank you.